Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Juanita Aber. In addition to teaching this course, I am also an 8th grade English teacher in Goose Creek CISD. Today, I'm just going to do a quick little video explaining how we write objectives for lessons. There are two different types of objectives. We have content objectives and language objectives. The content objectives is what am I learning? So this is going to be using the language of the TEKS. It's going to tell the students the skills and the knowledge that they'll be gaining that day. The language objective then is how am I learning it? So this is going to be the activity, the strategy, and the assessment. Here are some different ways that you can start writing your objectives, and these can work for either content or language objectives. These two are personally my favorites, Today I Will and Today I Will Learn How To, because I always have my students read the objectives out loud in class all together. So when they're saying it from their own perspective, it helps them take ownership of their own learning. However, a lot of teachers use the student will be able to, or the learner will, or different variations of those. Those are both excellent options as well. But I really prefer the Today I Will. Even without the today, just the I will is better for when students are reading the objectives because it helps them take ownership. So let's look at some examples. We're going to start with an English example. This is an ELAR TEK 6.5D. So that means that is 6th grade, the 5th TEK, and then D is the sub-TEK. So that one says, the student is expected to make mental images to deepen understanding. So our content objective for that TEK could be, today I will learn how to make mental images to deepen my understanding of a fiction text. Now I added the fiction text to this because in English, a lot of these TEKs work across all genres, but we're not doing this with every genre in class today. We're only focusing on fiction today. So I make my content objective a little bit more specific. Then the language objective, today I will read a fiction text and draw images of what I see in my mind. So now from this, when a student comes in and sees this content objective and this language objective on my board, they know what skill they're learning today and what they're going to be doing in class today. Let's look at a math example. So this is Math 8.2C, so this is an 8th grade TEK 2C. The student is expected to convert between standard decimal notation and scientific notation. So a content objective from that, the learner will be able to convert a number between standard decimal notation and scientific notation, almost exactly the same thing as the TEK, and that is perfectly fine. The language objective for that then, the learner will complete a self-paced pair deck to convert multiple numbers between standard decimal notation and scientific notation. So now the student knows the skill that they're learning, that conversion skill, and they know how they're going to be doing it. They know that they're going to grab an iPad, log into Pear Deck, and that's what they're doing today. Let's look at a science example next. So this is Science 9A, and I forgot to put the grade level there, but I'm pretty sure it was 7th grade. The student is expected to analyze the characteristics of objects in our solar system that allow life to exist, such as the proximity of the sun, presence of water, and composition of the atmosphere. That's a big one. There's a lot going on in there. Now, it's not entirely realistic that you would be talking about every single object in the solar system in one class period. So for the content objective, I narrowed it down. The student will be able to analyze the characteristics of Mars, including its proximity to the sun, presence of water, and composition of the atmosphere. Now, you might narrow that down a different way. I'm not a science teacher, so I'm not sure exactly the best way to do this. But you might be looking at all of the planets in the solar system and their proximity to the sun. And so you make your content objective fit that, just however you're narrowing it down. A lot of our TEKs have a lot of content packed into one simple sentence. And sometimes we have to pull out just what we're doing today. So for the language objective for that, the student will create a one-pager to break down and explain the characteristics of Mars. So again, if it was, we're looking at the proximity to the sun for all of the solar objects in the solar system, then maybe it's the student will create a one-pager to break down and explain each planet's proximity to the sun. Okay, so depending on how you break it down, there are multiple content objectives and language objectives that can come out of one TEK. Now let's look at a really long one. Here's our social studies, 8th grade, TEK 4A. The student is expected to analyze causes of the American Revolution, including the Proclamation of 1763, the Intolerable Acts, the Stamp Act, mercantilism, lack of representation in Parliament, and British economic policies following the French and Indian War. That teak alone right there is probably about a whole semester's worth of instruction. So we're going to break it down. Notice that my content objective is much shorter today, or just I will analyze how the Stamp Act contributed to the causes of the American Revolution. So instead of looking at every single thing that's listed in that teak, today we're just focusing on the Stamp Act and how it caused the American Revolution. Our language objective, I will work with a partner to create a Google Slides presentation explaining how the Stamp Act was a cause of the American Revolution. So now the student, again, they know that I'm learning about the Stamp Act. I'm not just learning about what it is, but I'm learning about how it caused the American Revolution. And then my language objective tells me that I'm going to get to work with a partner, woohoo, and then I get to make a Google Slides presentation. So then maybe tomorrow's objective might be exactly the same, but the language objective will be I will work with a partner to present a Google Slides presentation. So our content objectives can stay the same over multiple days. Sometimes I'll have the content objective and the language objective will be the same for an entire week. Sometimes slight differences day to day. Sometimes it's entirely different every day. It just depends on what you're teaching. The purpose of these objectives is so that your students know exactly what they're learning and exactly how they're learning it every single day. So that's our objectives. Now is your chance to practice. So what you are going to do, and this is going to be your 5 points for this week, is choose 2 teaks from different grade levels in your content area. So if you are getting certified for math, you're going to choose 2 different math teaks from 2 different grade levels. So maybe a 6th grade and a 10th grade. It's entirely up to you, whatever grade level you want to choose, but you need to have 2 different teaks. Then using those 2 teaks, you're going to write 4 sets of content and language objectives. So that's 4 sets total. 2 sets for each teak, because I want you really thinking about how many different objectives can come out of one specific teak. Okay, so 2 teaks, 2 sets for each, 4 total sets. Once you have all of that done, you're going to post your objectives to the discussion board in Blackboard. Now, it would be really great for us if you would just post those right in there instead of doing like a Word doc and attaching that. Just put them right in the discussion board. Then you can also, once some of your classmates have begun posting, and this will be for both sections of the course, you can go in and look and see how other people wrote their objectives too, and really think about especially different content areas, the differences, the similarities in what you've chosen to write. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to email either one of your instructors or ask questions out in the GroupMe. Happy learning!